And welcome back to Educate Ebony. I'm Ebony, and I had a really good chat this episode. We'll get to that in a second, but I would like to recap on episode 3 where I chatted to Susanna Ioanu, and she told me to listen to the album Gutter Ballet by Savatage, and I was definitely saying it as Sabotage with a B, but it's with a V, Savatage. Yeah, I didn't get that for a long time until I tried to find it on the internet. But the album itself, it's definitely not my usual taste in that I wouldn't have chosen to listen to it if I stumbled upon it. I would have been like, cool, this sounds great. And then I would have moved on to something else. But actually having to sit down and listen to it, I think made me appreciate everything that went on in that album. And it was really interesting. There were classical, I guess not classical, but classic rock, classic metal sort of elements, because it is from the 80s, granted the late 80s, but it definitely feels like it could have been made earlier. I think it's a very impressive album, and I think it blended nicely with my everyday life. Susanna said to listen to it during my everyday life. So, I went to the library, went to the shops, lay in the sun, went for a walk around South Bank. It was a good time, and it was just really nice background music. And that's not in a bad way. I'm not talking like elevator music. I'm talking like just nice, this is my life kind of music. So that was cool. But let's roll on to this episode, shall we? Because I am super excited to introduce Dylan Gillies-Parsons. He is the lead gravy maker for one of Australia's heaviest bands, Gravemind. He's an extremely charismatic frontman, and he has the perfect length hair for headbanging, and that's very important for everyone to know. So, Dylan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Ebony. I appreciate it.
No worries at all. It's lovely to have you. Let's jump straight in.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, what is the one metal album you think I need to hear?
The one metal album I think you definitely need to hear is the album Iowa by the band Slipknot. You may have heard of them, may not have. I'm not too sure. I'm not.
I have.
Is that so? How you're going at the moment with your learning of old school metal, of that bold metal we talked about?
Does Korn fall into that category, or are they too cool for bold?
They did a dubstep album, so they fall nicely into
wow.
bold metal these days. Yeah, they're definitely very bold now.
Okay, well, yeah, Jack from Void of Vision told me to listen to their debut, and I did. That was awesome. Loved it. That was great. But otherwise, not too much else, really.
Ah, cool. So Jack's recommended the first Korn album. That's funny because, yeah, the Iowa album for Slipknot, I believe, came out like around a similar time. So it was like back in the day, people used to compare. Yeah, weirdly, I never really got this. Maybe because I'm a vocalist and I just don't really, I'm not smart enough to really know what's going on instrumentally, but people would compare Korn and Slipknot all the time. Like those were the two like neck and neck nu metal bands of the era. So see, I think most people either fell into Slipknot or they fell into Korn, and then as they got older, they realized they're being an idiot, and both are pretty good. So
yeah,
interesting. Jack reckons like okay.
Yeah, he was like, it's not necessarily his favorite, but he's definite. You got to hear it. It's a game changer. Is that the same with Iowa by Slipknot?
Yeah, I would say so. Iowa by Slipknot was to me like such an influential record, just for the fact that it was like I said before, when I was at that Christian school, I got shown Slipknot, and so it just felt like it felt big. It felt like, ooh, a bit naughty. Shouldn't be listening to this at Christian school. There was something quite like visually alluring about it. There was something that like captivated like a young mind from the get-go. And I guess being that like Tasmanian grade 7 boy, the masks and like the get-up and everything was what drew me in. But then as I listened, I've listened to this album since I was in the first year of high school, and still to this day, it's aged like a fine wine to me at least. To me at least, I think it's definitely an album you should listen to now, because for kind of what it did for metal and kind of what it showed you could do. So Slipknot had a self-titled album, which I think maybe half the listeners who know about Slipknot will be screaming and like shouting at their monitors, because they would be thinking I should recommend that original album to you.
Okay.
Because it's like a bit rappier. It's like got those nu metal elements. It's got like some pretty big songs. I'm sure you've heard like Wait and Bleed, Eyeless. But Iowa was the album that they followed up with, and it was in every single way imaginable so much heavier and so much more aggressive and unrelenting and almost unpolished in a way. It has this real rawness to it, like where you can kind of almost hear in a lot of the songs, like the drummer's kind of going out of time. It's the vocals are like fumbled and they're not super articulate. It's just this like unabashful like aggression and rage on this record that even to this day, listening to it, I think after hearing so many different metal bands, as I'm sure you have, working at Wall of Sound, you would have heard so many different renditions of, oh wow, a metalcore band with a bit of gent influence. Who would have guessed?
Love it.
So fresh, so new. That Iowa is still an album to this day that when you listen to it, you can still, you get a very clear sense of like raw emotion. And it was an album that I think is really, really especially poignant for me because they were a band that was so wrapped up in their theatrics. They all wore masks. They had a drum kit that floated up into the stage and it would tilt forward and spin with a pentagram behind it. Like, it was full on, like, it was almost like going to the circus a little bit when you would go to see, I would imagine, go see Slipknot back in 2001 when they had this album come out. They were so theatrical. But what was something that I took away from that album was that the music itself wasn't adulterated. It didn't sound like it was something done for commercial success. Clearly, because it was so much heavier than their first album. I remember watching all the little unauthorized like VHS tapes and interviews about Iowa, and all the bands saying that everyone expected them to write a record that was going to be more commercially like marketable, with like more clean, like, you know, clean singing, and I don't think they called it clean singing back then, but something that was at least like more radio friendly. And they just went, fuck that, we're really pissed off. Where like Nine, kind of like, I don't know what their version of bogans are in America, but let's just say nine like uneducated bogany kind of dudes that were just fucking really mad, and they wrote an album that was just so heavy, and it got to like #1 in the UK charts.
Oh, what the heck?
Yeah, it topped all their last record sales. It was like such a massive commercial success, and they did that by writing a ridiculously heavy album.
I just can't even comprehend. You know, I don't want to say throw the rule book out the window. Just be like, cool, last album was great. Let's forget about it and just start anew. What do we want to do? What do we feel like? And just go from there. Wow.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. They give me a lot of confidence being in like a really, really stupidly heavy band that you don't have to, you know, chuck in a few more choruses and, you know, make it more commercially accessible for it to be successful and to have an illustrious career. And I think even these days people kind of tend to stick their noses up at bands that clearly, quote unquote, sell out.
Yeah, they do. Even if the music is good, even if you're like, oh my God, this album's so good, but little bit commercial, a little bit more mainstream. Oh my God, Triple J's playing it. Oh, I don't know, you know?
Yeah, that kind of like, oh, is it still cool? Can I listen to it? Is it bald yet? I'm not sure.
I don't know, yeah. So when you first listened to it, you were in primary school, did you say?
I was grade 7, so I was first year of high school.
Yeah, was it on like tape, CD? How did you get your hands on this little number?
What do we have back then?
I feel like it was CDs. I don't know how old you are, but like when I was in year 7, we had CDs.
Do you remember a thing called LimeWire?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So that's how I got my hands on a bunch of Slipknot songs, was through LimeWire.
Good days.
And I think once I had a whole little MP3 player full of just like, I don't even know where the songs were from, all different places, all different albums, all Slipknot. Some of them were like, you type in Slipknot Duality and you get Soulja Boy. This is a bit of like a deviation from this chap. Have you heard about what Soulja Boy did to make himself famous?
No, I don't.
He used to rename his own song like Beyonce, her latest single, or like Eminem, Lose Yourself, or he would rename his own song that and then upload it to illegal downloading software like Napster and LimeWire. So people would download the latest Eminem track and then just hear you.
I mean, sneaky but genius.
I know, very genius. So that's where I got my hands on Slipknot. And then I think when I had enough money, I went down to a local Sanity store. Do you remember? They've got that in Brisbane still somewhere, like out in the burbs. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm originally from like SA and Adelaide, so like we had Sanity up until probably a couple of years ago for sure. It's probably still there. I didn't even know, but yeah.
I used to, so there was one in Tassie, which is the one that I bought the CD from when I was a kid. And then when I was in grade 11 and 12, I actually got a job working at Sanity. And their country section was bigger than their pop rock.
No.
Yeah. And we had this tiny little rack on the side, which was for metal. And it was right at the front counter. So anytime anyone come in and they would look at the metal section, I'd just be like, oh. That's how I've got Aiden, the guitarist in our band, because he went to the front metal section, picked up a free CD, and I literally just said to him, I was like, I'm in a band. Do you want to join my band and play guitar?
Is that the origin story
That's
of
literally
Gravemind?
that's the origin story of us playing in bands, and to more or less us still being in bands to this day. Yeah.
That's beautiful. What a great relationship.
Yeah, it's very cute. And he said to me, he was like, oh, I'll have to think about it, dude. And then the next day he was at recording. It's very cute.
Happily ever after. Oh my gosh.
Happily ever after, yeah.
Well, when you were listening to Iowa, I guess the first couple of times, did it become important to you immediately, or you took a couple of listens and like you look back and you're like, actually, that's a good album. I really like it. It means a lot.
It's definitely an acquired taste, I think. I mean, like it was for a grade 7 like kid. I didn't like it straight away because it was so aggressive that I was like, I didn't know how to listen to it. I didn't really know how to process it. But the theatrics and the imagery, it all kind of conceptualized it for me, and I could slowly start to appreciate the music as opposed to just looking at it for the spectacle, I guess. So if you're gonna sit down and have a listen to it, maybe give it a few runs, or I'd recommend there's the best live DVD on planet Earth. It's called Slipknot Disaster Pieces, and that's a live DVD. They play the entire album of Iowa and a bunch of their singles from the first album, and it just you watch it and you go, I get it. That's why there's 9 people. That's why this is the way it is. This makes perfect sense, and it doesn't lose. There's like all these theatrics, but it's still somehow art. I don't know. It's a very weird, nice blending of like completely like label made marketing meets like art.
Right. So do you reckon that you can't separate their image and their theatrics from the music? If I had no idea who Slipknot was and like didn't know what they looked like and I listened to the album itself, would it have the same effect as if I knew who they were and like saw the music videos and like saw their masks and everything?
I honestly couldn't for the life of me even imagine what that would be like. I would be interested to hear what you think if you just listened to the record and then told me what you took from it. Whether you're like, this is like a bit whatever. Like, I'd be interested to hear what you think listening to it music first before seeing the videos and seeing any like live DVDs or anything like that, because that could be really eye-opening. I'm not sure.
That could be interesting. I don't know. Well, now that you are a musician in your own right, when you listen to this album back again, are there any like musical aspects or little things that you noticed about the vocalists as well that you really love and you reckon maybe other people overlook, or people who aren't I guess people like me who aren't really, I don't know a lot about music and technicalities that I would miss?
Yeah, definitely. When I listened to Corey's vocals on that album specifically, I don't even think he had necessarily a technique. Like, these days vocalists all talk about technique. They all have a certain thing that they do which creates their sound, and if you have good technique, then you can scream for show after show after show after show, and it's like, it can be specific to you, but it can also be quite generic. Like, if you're a vocalist and you're trying to learn how to scream, you might even notice yourself when you listen to lots of different bands coming through Wall of Sound, you're like, all these vocals kind of sound the same way, they impact the same way, they hit the same way. It's because those vocalists most likely have, to some degree, good technique, where they're looking after their voice and they're creating the scream noise before it leaves their mouth. So the microphone kind of does a little of the amplification. Yeah,
Cool.
It's a bit of a trick. It's like a bit of like a smoke and mirrors a little bit sometimes for some screamers, where the mic is making it sound huge, but they're actually really quiet when they scream. But when you listen to Corey, it's literally him in a room just shouting as loud as he can. And the noise you're getting, the aggression you're getting from listening to him is just what his body can do. And I think they call it, one of his nicknames is like the neck, because he has like the world's like largest neck. He's like a little dude with a neck the size of like your head. It just goes from cheeks straight down. And I swear to God, that's just because he didn't have a technique. He got drunk, went into the studio, was manically depressed, and then just made one of the darkest albums ever. And when you listen to it, you can actually hear in the take that most of it's like one take, and it might even be one. It might just, I guess he must just go from the start of the song until he can't anymore. You can't really hear that many cuts where it's like one take after the next. So he'll go from one section to the next, and he'll be out of breath, and he'll just keep doing it. Like, he'll scream to the next line by fumbling the words and kind of catching up to himself, and it's just so raw. It's just like it's powerful and it's raw, and I don't think there's been much like it ever since.
Wow, people don't do that these days. It's all very,
No.
well, I mean, you would know better than I do, but like, I imagine it's very precise and be like, cool, here's that verse, have a little rest,
What's it like? Would you ever try and emulate what he did in this album?
That's a great interview question.
Thank you.
Because I did actually for this latest Gravemind record that we've just recorded. I think we recorded. We went to an Airbnb for I think 17 days, which we've never done that before. We've never all as a band gone to a location and just said, okay, this is our time to make the album. And so I've never ever recorded vocals so consecutively. So it was like, you know, day on, day off, day on, day off, day on, day off. And then the last few days was just day on, day on, day on until I got it done. So my voice didn't actually have time to recover. So every time I do a recording take, you know, you try new things, you don't know how it's going to work, so you kind of hurt your voice a little bit. It kind of files off my like technical ability like 5 to 10% at a time. It'll literally just like make it worse sounding. And on this record, I'm really, really happy with it. The one that we've just written and recorded, because you can hear on some songs where I don't sound at my best, and it makes the song so much better. Like I can't believe it. Like, and for some reason, like just by coincidence, it's all the really emotional and like emotive songs where I'm at my worst, and it just, I don't know, it has this magic about it where I'm really, really happy because it reminds me of that Iowa record where it would have just been Corey screaming until he couldn't anymore in a quick succession, all in one take. And so, yeah, I got to somehow replicate that vibe on this record. So it's really cool.
That is so cool. Also very tough. Like, I would assume physically and mentally to be like, I feel like I don't sound my best, but it actually sounds really good.
Well, tough is a funny. It wasn't tough. I would do like 6 hours of screaming, stop, and then just say to everyone, I'm not speaking another word, don't ask me a thing. And then I'd drink little Manuka honey teas, just one after, to be huffing steam out of a pot. Like it was anything but tough. It was just, I felt like a very, very fragile little butterfly. I was like, don't go near me, don't give me a beer. Like, I know I'm not smoking that. Like, get away from me.
Give me my tea and my veggies.
Yeah, and my sleep. I want my sleep.
Yeah.
In my little, I had like this Airbnb had like 7 or so rooms with all these like big double beds, and some of them had like a few shared, like, you know, a couple of beds in one room, and I claimed like the kids' room for some reason. I don't know why. There's like a 2 single bunk beds meant for children in this one room, and I was like, that's my one. That's my room. That's my little safe space. That's my zone. And I kind of pretended like I was in, I don't know, like the military or something, and I got in my little bed, I got the sheets up, and I was like, all right, I gotta rest now. I'm resting because I gotta get up in the morning and do a mission.
Well, the big question is, top bunk or bottom bunk?
Bottom. I can't.
It's got to be the bottom. You're right.
It's got to be the bottom. When you're a kid, top bunk is so cool, but like I'm a big fella. Walking up those little slats just hurts my feet. I don't want to get to the fucking top bunk every time. No.
It's not worth it. No. Well, the album as a whole, what's your favorite track?
It's got to be this. It's just saying it out loud. I was like, at the start of this conversation, I was like, I wonder if this album's considered bald now. And I'm like, nah, it's definitely not. But I think it is, because my favorite track, the name of the track is "People Equals Shit."
Great.
Yeah, that's all. There you go.
Nothing has changed, has it?
No, no, it has not. Yeah, that's like after the little intro that they've got. There's like a little intro section, which, cool little bit of trivia. Not cool. It's depressing as hell. But there's an intro track where it sounds like someone screaming and kind of like in pain, and that is the audio recorded message of their DJ Sid when he got the news that his grandfather had passed away. Oh, they recorded him, or somehow they recorded his reaction to that, and it's stretched out, and that's at the start of the record. It's fucked up. Wow. And then the actual starting, like the main track, "People Equal Shit," comes in, and it's the most overbearing, obnoxious way to start a record that's meant to be like this big Roadrunner commercial thing ever. It's literally called "People Equal Shit." I think that's just like, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's tough, but I think it's one of the more bold ways to start your metal record.
Oh my god, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
They lived and breathed it. Like, it'd be interesting for you to listen to it and see what you think when you listen to it. But I would go back and watch some of the interviews and like the meet and greets and like the behind the scenes stuff of around that time, because it just doesn't exist like that in anywhere in the world in metal anymore. Like, they lived and breathed this crazy shit. They had fans giving them like fan art made in their blood and things like that. Like, just the craziest fans you've ever seen in your life. People losing their minds to see this band. And that just wouldn't happen at all anymore. Like, I've met all my heroes in metal, and the best ones are the ones that are boring and lame like me. They're just like, I'm like, oh yeah, working on the record, we're in a nice relaxing little place, and we're going to this producer and that producer, and like very tame personalities, very tame sorts of people. Those are the rock stars now. But back then, they used to have a website called slipknot1.com, and it had a tab that said injuries. And it was an injuries list for all of the band members, and most of the people in the band had an injury caused by a guy called Sean, which was their drummer. Oh no, one of the percussive drummers. He played these big tub drums, like 4 or 5 of them, just massive, like tom-looking things, and a keg. And he would hit that keg with a baseball bat, and it would go ting. And that's in the song. You can hear this guy hit a keg. And most injuries were caused by him throwing that keg across the stage, lighting people on fire. He'd light people on fire with lighter fluid on stage. He broke people's toes with the keg. Like, these people were absolutely fucking batshit insane.
Wow, this is where metal gets its reputation, because the metal of like right now, 2021, I mean, you can say tame, it's still heavy and awesome and hardcore and stuff, but like that's where people are like, oh my god, you like heavy metal? Ooh, because of all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, even look at the way like we're dressed and like the way we've decorated our room. We're not.
Yeah, I've got plants up there.
Yeah, I've got my little video game collection over there, my favorite games on my different consoles. It's like it's a whole different world now. I think it's in a weird way. It's a lot healthier and more sustainable, but it's definitely far less exciting.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I don't know how you know all this trivia, or not, it's not trivia, but like all these really cool aspects and little behind the scenes notes of the band and the album. But I know that Wikipedia doesn't say it for sure. So like, if you could have a little typey type on the Wikipedia page for this album, is there anything specific about the album that you would add that you'd want people to know about?
Outside of those little tidbits and facts I gave you, I generally don't think there's anything else I can really say. I think I gave you the greatest hits.
Yeah, just be like, just all of it. Just listen to this podcast. Listen to the episode. Don't read Wikipedia.
No. Literally just listen to this.
Come right here.
This is where you should go.
Get educated. Oh, well, I always like to ask this question. I always think it's really interesting. But what are your listening notes? How do you reckon I should listen to it? What else have I had? Go for a drive?
Yeah.
How do you feel is the best way?
This record in particular is best saved for when you're feeling particularly overwhelmed. I think if you are in a really brain foggy, fuzzy, and like pent up state of mind, that's when this album really comes alive, because it is just so one track in its aggression. It goes through the start of the album is all really aggressive and really angry, and then it goes quite dark and melancholic by the end. And so you do somehow on this really dense, heavy record, you do go through a bit of a ride, and your emotions do change. But I think the best way to go into it, listening to it, is when you're a bit pissed off. So maybe listen to it in traffic, potentially, like or whenever something happens and you're just like, oh, for fuck's sakes. That's when you put it on.
I like it. That's cool. That's very specific. Anything else to add before we wrap this one up?
No, thanks so much for having me on. It's been fun. I never thought I'd get to talk about one of my favorite albums from when I was a kid, and still to this day. So this is a nice little experiment.
No, well, thanks for coming on. It's been so great to chat with you. And to recap for everyone, the one metal album that Dylan Gillies-Parsons thinks that you and I need to listen to is Iowa by Slipknot.
Thanks so much, Dylan. This is so good. I can't wait to listen to it from your point of view with all this knowledge. So great.
No worries at all. Have you heard of that term? Have you been in the metal long enough now to know what bald is?
Wait, bald is in B-A-L-D?
B-A-L-D is a description for like
No.
music, or mainly metal, that's they call it bald. So if it's like which would fall like into your Slayers, maybe into your Pantera, it's like tank top metal. It's like the hell yeah, brother.
Yeah.
Goddamn. That's so it's kind of like a bit lame. If someone says like a band these days, like a new band is bold, it basically means they're like old and they're lame.